It was a chilly night in Hyderabad. The streets, dimly lit. The traffic, thinning out. It was just another ordinary evening. But in the shadows of the city, something unthinkable was unfolding, something so horrifying, it would shake the soul of a nation. She was 26. A doctor. A daughter. A dreamer. She had plans, she had hope, she had a future. Until four men decided to turn her life into a living nightmare. They saw her. They followed her. And what they did next, would scar India's conscience forever. This is not just the story of a crime. This is a story about fear. About rage. About justice. This is the story of Disha, the young veterinary doctor whose tragic end ignited a storm across the country. In this video, we'll walk you through the timeline of that fateful night. We'll look at who the victim was, who the perpetrators were, how the investigation unfolded, and how the law responded. We'll delve into the controversial encounter that ended 4 lives and raised countless questions. And we'll ask the one question still haunting us all: has anything really changed since then? This is a story that must be told, not just to honor the memory of one woman, but to remind us of the battle we still fight every single day, for safety, for justice, for change. Now, let's rewind the clock, to the evening of November 27, 2019. A girl was on her way home. She parked her scooter near a toll plaza. She was supposed to return home that night, but she never did. What happened between that moment and the next morning would plunge the country into grief and fury. This is the full account of the Disha rape and murder case. A case that forced India to look into the mirror and confront its deepest fears. Before we dive deeper into the horrific events of that night, let's take a moment to understand who she was. Because she was more than just a victim, she was someone's daughter, someone's sister, a friend, a healer. She was Disha. Disha was a 26-year-old veterinary doctor. Intelligent. Hardworking. Quiet, but focused. She lived in Hyderabad with her family, her parents and a younger sister. Like many Indian daughters, she grew up with dreams in her eyes and responsibility in her heart. She had recently started working at a veterinary hospital in Kollur. Every day, she'd commute from her home to the hospital and back, sometimes late into the evening. But she never complained. She was proud of her work. Healing animals, treating the helpless, it gave her purpose. But beneath her soft exterior was a strong, confident woman. Independent. Educated. A symbol of the modern Indian woman, navigating the world with hope and courage. Until 4 men decided to crush all of that in a single, horrifying night. Let's talk about the men who did this. The 4 accused were not high-profile criminals. They were not underworld gangsters. No. They were truck drivers and cleaners. Ordinary men, with monstrous minds. Muhammad Arif, the prime accused, was a 26-year-old lorry driver. He had a wife. A child. And yet, beneath that family life, lay a man capable of unspeakable violence. Then there was Jala Shiva. He was just 20. A lorry cleaner. Thin, scruffy, barely out of his teens, but old enough to participate in a brutal gang rape and murder. Jala Naveen, Shiva's cousin, another lorry cleaner. 20 years old. And finally, Chintakanta Chenik, also just 20. The youngest of the 4, but with a heart as dark as the others. All 4 were from Makthal Mandal in Narayanapet district, Telangana. Poor backgrounds, little education, scattered family ties, but none of that justifies what they did. Because poverty doesn't breed evil. Choices do. What makes a man do something so vile? Is it the thrill of control? The lust? The feeling of power? Psychologists say that crimes like this aren't about sex. They're about domination. About dehumanizing another person for the sake of twisted pleasure. These four men didn't just rape Disha. They planned it. They hunted her. They waited for the right moment. It was premeditated. Cold. Calculated. When they saw Disha parking her scooter near the Tandupalli toll plaza, they knew she was alone. Vulnerable. She had no idea they were watching her. Waiting. To many, they looked like nobodies. Just background characters in the story of a busy world. But in one night, they became the villains of a national nightmare. On one side, you had Disha, a young, educated professional working tirelessly to build a life. On the other, for young men who chose to destroy rather than create, to hurt rather than help. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was the collision of two Indias. One moving forward, the other dragging it back into darkness. That night, as Disha called her sister, asking if someone could accompany her, the fear in her voice was real. Her instincts told her something was wrong. And they were right. Tragically right. It was the evening of November 27, 2019, a Wednesday. Disha had just finished her shift at the veterinary hospital in Kollur. She was tired, but still smiling. She had one more thing to do before heading home. She parked her two-wheeler near the Tandupalli toll plaza on Outer Ring Road, Shamshabad. This was a familiar routine. She often parked her scooter there and booked a cab to reach her home in Shamshabad. Around 8 p.m., Disha walked toward the toll area. The CCTV cameras later captured her walking past the lorries. Calm. Unaware of what was lurking behind the shadows. She called her younger sister. She said something chilling. Something that haunts people to this day. "I'm feeling scared, there's some people staring at me." Her sister tried to calm her down. Told her to stay near the toll area. Told her to wait. But within minutes, the line went dead. At 9:22 p.m., the last trace of Disha's mobile phone activity was logged. After that, silence. The plan had already been made. The four accused had deliberately punctured the rear wheel of her scooter. They knew she'd be stranded. They knew she'd need help. And that is when they moved in. One of them, Arif, offered help. He told her that there was a nearby mechanic. That they'd get the tire fixed. She hesitated, but she was alone. Scared. Vulnerable. So she agreed. But instead of leading her to safety, they led her to her doom. They dragged her to an isolated, dark field behind a compound wall near the toll plaza. It was a secluded area, barely accessible, hidden from passing vehicles. She fought. She screamed. But they overpowered her. 4 against 1. What followed was unspeakable. Each of them took turns. One by one. They raped her. For over an hour. They crushed her body. Broke her spirit. And when she cried, they covered her mouth, choked her. She pleaded for her life. She begged them to let her go. But there was no mercy. Afraid she might identify them later, they made a final, horrifying decision. They strangled her with her own scarf. Tight. Until her body stopped moving. Until the silence around them became permanent. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, they poured petrol on her body. And set it on fire. They watched as the flames swallowed the evidence. But no fire can burn away guilt. Or erase what they had done. Back at home, Disha's family was in panic. It was past 10 p.m. and she wasn't answering. They dialed again and again. No response. At 11 p.m., her sister and father rushed to the Shamshabad police station to file a missing person complaint. But what they faced there only added to their nightmare. Police allegedly delayed action. Jurisdiction issues between two stations, Rajiv Gandhi International Airport Police and Shamshabad Police, caused confusion. Precious hours were lost. The family kept pleading. But officers were reportedly casual. They asked questions like, did she elope? Maybe she went with someone. Questions no grieving family should hear. By the time real action began, it was already too late. Around 5 a.m. the next morning, a passerby noticed something unusual near an underpass in Shatampally village, under Shadnagar police limits. It was the smell of burning flesh. And then, the horrifying sight of a charred body. Unrecognizable. Inhuman. Soon, police confirmed it was a female body. And within hours, the worst was confirmed. It was Disha. She had been gang-raped, strangled, and burned alive. Later, in confession, the accused admitted to buying petrol the night before. They cleaned the area. Threw her phone away. Burned her clothes. Hid the scooter. They returned to work the next day, as if nothing had happened. Monsters, hiding in plain sight. As news of the crime spread, India exploded in grief and fury. Protests erupted across Hyderabad, Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru. The streets roared with one united cry, "We want justice." Disha became the face of a movement. Women poured out in anger. Men stood beside them. The outrage was unstoppable. And at the center of it all, a grieving family. A broken father. A silent mother. A sister who still couldn't believe she was gone. As the sun rose on November 28, 2019, it wasn't an ordinary morning. The air was heavier. Hyderabad was in shock. And the police were under fire. The discovery of Disha's charred body had shaken the city. But the question remained, who did this? And how fast could justice move? Suddenly, all eyes were on law enforcement. After a slow and questionable response the night before, now the heat was on. The government, the media, and the people, everyone demanded answers. The Cyberabad police, one of the most advanced task forces in the country, formed multiple investigation teams. And within hours, they had their first clue. From the toll plaza, investigators retrieved CCTV footage. At around 8:30 p.m., cameras showed a suspicious lorry parked near where Disha had left her scooter. This was it. The first visual link. The trap in motion. Police tracked the vehicle using RFID tracking data and fuel purchase records. Within 12 hours of the discovery of the body, they had traced the lorry to a transport company in Narayanapet district. All 4 suspects were identified by name. And one by one, they were picked up from their homes and workplaces. They didn't run. They didn't hide. Because they never thought they'd be caught so soon. But what followed inside the police station was even more shocking. Under interrogation, Muhammad Arif, the prime accused, confessed. His words were cold. Empty. Like he was talking about a routine errand. We planned it. We watched her. We punctured the tire. Then came Jala Shiva. Nervous. Sweating. He broke quickly. We took turns, we killed her, then burned the body. There was no remorse. No guilt. Just blunt admissions. Chenik Shavulu even tried to blame Disha, said she provoked them by dressing up. That statement alone sent chills down the spine of every woman in India. DNA evidence was quickly processed. And guess what? All 4 men's DNA matched the samples taken from Disha's body and the surrounding area. This was no hearsay. This was solid forensic proof. Their phones told another damning story. Tower pings showed that all 4 accused were at the crime scene around 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., exactly the time of Disha's disappearance. Call records showed coordination between them. They even called a local petrol pump to ask if they had fuel late at night. In modern crimes, your phone can be your biggest enemy. And in this case, it was a digital witness. Disha's body was so badly burnt, it couldn't be identified through facial features. Her family had to identify her by a small, unburned portion of her dress and a locket she always wore. No parent should ever see their child like that. As news broke that the accused had been arrested, crowds gathered outside the Shadnagar police station. They wanted one thing: instant justice. They pelted stones at police vehicles. They tried to storm the station. The mob didn't want courts or trials. They wanted blood for blood. The scene was so volatile, the police had to request 300 extra personnel to control the situation. Under mounting pressure, the Telangana government announced that the case would be fast-tracked. A fast-track court was to be set up. Home Minister Amit Shah called it a test case for India's criminal justice system. People weren't asking for justice anymore. They were demanding it. Loudly. Relentlessly. Fearing lynching attempts, the police produced the accused before a magistrate late at night, away from public eyes. They were remanded in judicial custody. They showed no emotion. No fear. No shame. The accused were kept in Cherlapalli Central Jail, Hyderabad. Meanwhile, their interrogation continued. Every move was watched. Every word recorded. Every second, tense. The Disha case had now become a national symbol. A rallying cry. An echo of Nirbhaya. But something unexpected was just around the corner. By the end of November 2019, India had already passed its verdict. The four accused in the Disha rape and murder case, Arif, Shiva, Naveen, and Chenak Shavyalu, had confessed. The evidence was airtight, and the people wanted justice. Not in months. Not in years. But now. What happened next was something that would divide the country, stun the world, and spark one of the most explosive debates in Indian legal history. It was still dark outside when police vans left the high-security Cherlapalli Central Jail. Inside were the four accused, and several armed police officers. Their destination? The original crime scene. The official reason? Crime scene reconstruction. A routine part of investigation. A chance to verify confessions. A standard protocol, on paper. They reached the spot where Disha was brutally raped and murdered. It was 5:45 a.m. According to the police, while recreating the events of that horrifying night, the accused suddenly turned violent. They asked to retrieve some items they had allegedly hidden nearby. The officers allowed it. But within seconds, everything changed. One of them, Arif, grabbed a policeman's weapon. Another hurled stones. In the chaos, two of them tried to flee. And then, it happened. In the next 15 minutes, all four accused were shot dead by the police. Every one of them. Gone. Just like that. As the sun rose over India, headlines screamed, "All four rapists killed in police encounter." It was like a national release of pressure. A moment that felt like victory to many. A moment that felt like justice. People danced in the streets. Firecrackers were burst in Hyderabad. But not everyone was cheering. Within hours, legal experts, judges, and human rights activists began to question the legality of the encounter. This looks staged. This is not justice, it's revenge. Why wasn't there a trial? The National Human Rights Commission, NHRC, immediately took suo motu cognizance. A fact-finding team was dispatched to Hyderabad. Even the Supreme Court of India raised eyebrows. The NHRC team visited the site. They measured bullet trajectories. Collected evidence. Interviewed local officers. But serious questions remained. Why were the accused not handcuffed? Why weren't they surrounded by more officers? Why was the media not informed about the site visit? The post-mortem reports showed multiple bullet wounds to the chest and head. But how many rounds were fired? Who fired first? Why no injuries on the police side? Suddenly, that morning of heroism began to look murky. But in the midst of all the noise, all the headlines, one voice stood out. "We are satisfied. At least now, my daughter's soul can rest." Disha's father. For Disha's family, this wasn't about legality or politics. This was closure. Swift and irreversible. One half of the country saw the encounter as the only way to stop crimes against women. A message. A warning. The other half feared it set a dangerous precedent. That if police can kill without trial, no one is safe. Not even the innocent. The Disha case wasn't just national news, it was global. The world watched how we handled it. Whether we protected our daughters, or failed them again. Because a country that claims to be modern, digital, and democratic, must also be safe for women. She had a name. She had a future. She had rights. They took them all away. Let us never forget her. Let us never fail another one like her. Let Disha always show us the way. For Disha. For every Disha. Never again.